sorry. I think we, well, you know what? Just call the meeting to order. Yeah. And we'll do our salute to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Mrs. Chenoweth, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Banis Clemens.
Here.
Ms. Batisky.
Here.
Mrs. Blomgren.
Here.
Mrs. Chaikin.
Here.
Mr. Cormack.
Here.
Mrs. Cullen.
Here.
Mr. Rice.
Here.
Mr. Russell.
Here.
And Mr. Wurs.
Here.
Okay, thank you. We will do public comment. I don't have the, oh, here we go. All right, and according to policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@pennridge.org. Okay. So the first person that is on the list for something having to do with an agenda item is Ross McLennan. Just remember to state your name and municipality, please.
Ross McLennan, Hilltown. Good evening. When a few of us saw that the ad hoc community committee was not on the agenda on Saturday, we became concerned that once again the administration and the board was going to try to push back on the DEI programming. So when I saw it was added in yesterday, I was relieved. The discussion at the December 20th community committee was all on the mission statement. The entire 3.5 hours. As the meeting moved along, simple words and more importantly, basic ideologies became the subject of intense debate. Back and forth debating. Equality and equity. Definitions you would think we'd all know. For many on the committee seemed to go for over half an hour, that discussion. But as we watched, we started to see this growing respect among many committee members, which I hadn't noticed previously. I found this encouraging and very promising. The leaders in that room clearly made impassioned discussions back and forth, hammering out for 3.5 hours this mission statement. And in the process, some hope for the future of this important committee. Here's the mission statement they ended up with. Create and maintain a welcoming and inclusive environment that promotes learning and addresses the individual needs of all students. Recommend actions to the board regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion based on committee's assessment of needs and evaluation of existing and potential new resources. We recognize that a thoughtful, empathetic, empowered, and well-rounded student is critical to a resilient and unified community. I really like that mission statement. I realized that not everyone on the committee was there for whatever reason, but the bottom line was that we were witnessing the opportunity for our community to grow ties back together between our fractured groups. My hope is that this report today from the committee's chairman represents a successful, obviously very limited, but at least an earnest attempt to get the group moving forward. I would like to see the board vote to agree on the mission statement so that this committee may move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, the next person is Chuck Clifton.
Chuck Clifton, Sellersville. I was originally going to comment on the books being removed or targeted and evaluated, but I have a conflict that I can't stay for the second comment period here tonight. So instead, I'll speak about the community meeting that took place on December 20th. First of all, I'd like to thank the members of the committee for their communication and collaboration on what I think is a pretty remarkable joint mission statement. It took a while to get there, but it seems that the committee, against all odds, really did come together with common purpose and agenda to make some progress in making sure that all voices are heard. So kudos to all the members, including the couple of school board members who participated, and thanks to Mr. Rice to make sure that the community is on tonight's agenda. I was skeptical after it was decided to scrap the entire work of the previous DEI committee, skeptical we could ever make progress with the newly formed ad hoc committee, but against the odds, it seems like there is progress being made to form a plan to address systemic inequities in education that persist in Pennridge. It's so important to make sure that all students feel comfortable, all students feel represented in our curricula, our libraries, and everything that we say, everything that we do. We have so much to be proud of here in Pennridge. We have great teachers. We have capable administrators. We have nice facilities that we've built. And I think most importantly, we have our students for the future that we cherish. For the students and for the future, please keep up the good work. Thank you.
Okay, next is Laura Foster.
Hi, I'm Laura Foster. I'm with East Rockville Township. I'd like to start by congratulating Pennridge Community Committee for coming up with a cohesive and thoughtful mission statement. It's been really nice to see people with diversity of thought work together and agree. For the Curriculum Committee, I saw at your last meeting there was one public concern around a learning resource for social studies. I asked that the Curriculum Committee provide transparency to the policies, processes, and procedures that are being used to guide what community concerns are being integrated into their curriculum suggestions. Is it if one person says at a meeting that they are concerned about a resource that the committee investigates? How did you manage if two people comment and they hold two opposing views? Are you taking into account vetted educational guidelines for what is age appropriate? It seems like there's a grave lack of transparency as to how community input is taken into account. For the record, I think Learning for Justice is awesome. I 100% think it should be included in social studies as a resource. And as a white woman who went to Pennridge and actually has children in the district, not in private school, I see Learning for Justice as a comprehensive resource supporting all children. Additionally, I'd like to address the lack of initiative and curriculum to promote high school gifted education. Typically, the gifted education program will put out about 4 to 8 activities for gifted students to engage in. This in itself is a lackluster effort to engage gifted students. Comparable districts have specialized in-school gifted enrichment classes, summer gifted learning opportunities, and engagement seminars. Part of my child's GIAP is for participation in ELCs to be assessed quarterly. So far, there has been nothing to assess, as Pennridge has failed to provide ELCs from September to January. Her GIP is a legally binding document. I see no evidence to support that Pennridge is in compliance with Chapter 16 regulations, in particular Regulation 16.41E 1 through 5, which basically says that you can't use lack of staff or administrative convenience as an excuse for not implementing a GIEP. Likewise, it should be noted that professional disciplinary action may be initiated against administrators that demonstrate a continuing or persistent failure to offer gifted education programming as required by Article 16 and Chapter 16. Now that we have a new board, I ask what it is that you're doing about this. Since our district literally only has one paragraph about gifted services on this website, let me inform the community of the Pennsylvania Association for Gifted Education. is a highly organized and well-resourced resource for parents of gifted children. If you too are tired of blatant disregard for the education of gifted children at Pennridge, please reach out to Paige or to me. I'm a member of Paige and I can help to advocate for your child's gifted education. My email address is fosswa75@gmail.com. Thank you.
Okay, then Dave Badillion is next.
David Dillian, Percy Borough. I'd like to touch on the issue of library book reviews that are taking place that was brought up during the last community committee meeting in December. I understand and appreciate some of the concerns that have been raised by parents and community members from all sides, whether it's First Amendment rights, potential discrimination, parental rights, age appropriateness, transparency, etc. Unfortunately, it's been unfortunate that due to partial, misleading, and at times incorrect information being leaked to parents, the media, and spread across social media, the result was mostly confusion, division, and ad hominem attacks within the community versus allowing for constructive understanding and nuanced conversation to occur with all of the facts. The reality is the district was appropriately taking steps in response to finding out that there was a book in the library that contained graphic depictions of sexual acts that had no place in a public school library. These steps included investigating how the book got into the collection, what the current guidelines are, and whether they need to be revised, and conducting an internal review of all library collections for books that may be age inappropriate. I appreciate the district's willingness to be thorough. I understand sometimes that means casting a wide net and mitigating the risk of a similar situation in the future. I want to give an example of a book that was reported to be being under review. Call Me Max, which is a book that's available at Guth Elementary, is marketed as an age-appropriate introduction to what it means to be transgender. Apparently this book is rated for K through 2nd grade. So I'm going to read a few lines from this book. Gender means being a boy or a girl, or a little of both, or not feeling like a boy or a girl. When a baby is born, a grown-up says, it's a boy or it's a girl. If a brand new baby could talk, sometimes that baby might say, no, I'm not. When a baby grows up to be transgender, it means that the grown-ups who said that they were a boy or a girl made a mistake. I can't imagine that most parents in this community understand that that type of book is in an elementary school library that their kids have unfettered access to, unlike a public library. This isn't a judgment call, but if we're talking about transparency, parents don't have an idea that that type of book is in there. And so I understand why that is being considered, because the reality is different from a public library where parents go with the student or go with their child and can review. We're entrusting you to make sure that what they're getting is age appropriate. And so, to me, it seems appropriate that while I understand some families may feel that that's appropriate for their children, may want that resource, and the school is trying to find a way to accommodate all of the students and all of the families, having a separate resource room seems to fit and work with all of those things because it still provides access to families that want it, but it also doesn't put the burden on not only you to communicate to everybody and somehow track what parents may not want their students to access that, which seems completely impractical. This seems to be the appropriate solution to make sure that the books are available if they're not age appropriate. So I just want to thank you for doing the review and these steps that you're taking.
Thank you. All right. The next resident is Joshua Hogan.
All right, thanks. Josh Hogan, West Rock Hill Township. I brought with me tonight the existing health and safety plan, the current one, separate from what's being voted on tonight, because I want to bring up that I feel a lot of nostalgia for this plan. This plan says on it, data last review and revision June 16th, 2021. That's when this was passed 7 months ago. And this is the only plan in Bucks County. In fact, it's the only plan that I'm aware of in all of Pennsylvania that made it through the craziness of these last 7 months. So we had, statewide mask order. A lot of plans changed. We had changing guidance, Dr. Damsker, drama here and there, all kinds of different things, the Delta wave, the Omicron wave. and pretty much ever-changing guidance, and this one never changed throughout the whole last 7 months. So I feel a lot of nostalgia for this plan, and I have a question as to why do we need to change this plan? I'm aware of several things. First of all, the amendments to the plan in some ways can be thought of as maybe in some places there's improvements to what's going on today, in particular length of isolation and stuff like that. We're making that better. However, current isolation and other things we're doing aren't in the plan, and yet you're still doing them. So why does it need to be memorialized in the plan would be my question to the board. In particular, we have language now which requires masks in certain settings. That's going to be memorialized in a plan. You're all about to vote for so-and-so must wear a mask at some point. You're about to vote for a quarantine to take place, which we're going to be the only Republican-led school district in all Bucks County quarantining anyone. And I understand that that's a very niche case. I don't understand why it has to change the plan. Why can't we, from I don't know if it's a legal perspective or an administrative perspective or whatever it is, leave the plan in place, make those changes based on policy. When this policy came out 2 weeks ago, no big deal, no complaint, it is what it is. Some people think it's better, some people think it's worse. But you're just moving policy along, and that's what's been going on. You've been sending out notifications. This current plan does not say the word notifications in it anywhere. I brought up the mask thing. So all these things that have been happening, I just want to understand, why does the plan need to change now? So thank you. Oh, I also want to add, every time I'm here, lived here for 4 years, never had my taxes raised, so thank you for that.
Okay, and the last person is Heather Young.
I'm going to save my comments for the end because they're not directly due with what's on the agenda about the community meeting, unlike the comments of the committee.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Excuse me? Before you move on, you didn't call my name for a public comment. I might have written the wrong thing. I'm talking about AP Worlds, which is on the agenda.
What is your name, ma'am?
Robin Reed.
Okay. So if it's about AP World, then yeah, that's fine. Come on down. Just state your name and municipality.
My name is Robin Reed. I'm from
Robin Reed, Percy Borough. I'm a junior this year, and I decided to take AP World History at this time last year. I'd like to tell you about my experience with history curriculums at Pennridge. Last year, I took AP United States History. The year before that, Humanities Social Studies, where I learned about American history prior to the World Wars. In 8th grade, we learned about explorers and American history prior to the World Wars. 7th grade was the closest we did to anything different, where we did the geography of other continents like Africa and Asia, and strangely, the USA. Not the Americas, not North America, just the States. 6th grade was early civilizations, overwhelmingly Western ones, and 5th grade was American history prior to the World Wars. That's really the last year I remember. But this year, I elected to take AP World History because I find it fascinating that so many things can happen at the same time all over the world. Things were happening in other countries during the Civil War, but I never learned about those things. I understand the concern of not knowing about where I come from, but take it from me. I've learned the same things in my history classes up until this year, which is one of the first times I've actually felt challenged in a Pennridge history class. I spent a lot of time feeling bored in history classes because I know the information that's been given to me. Did you know that the currency system set up in the Harry Potter books was based off of generals in the Civil War? Because I did. But I didn't know that some of the leaders in Africa actively joined in with the Portuguese slave trade until it became too volatile and they pulled out for the well-being of their own people. Do you know what the Portuguese slave trade is? Do you know how it differs from the transatlantic slave trade? What seems more important to you? You want more Western cultures in the curriculum, but it's all I've ever known. It's hard for my teacher to be able to teach me to the best of her ability while her curriculum, one that she did not write or choose, is under attack. I am a hardworking student, but it is hard for me to get the same score on an AP test as another student whose materials are better fitted to the course. You might not find the proposed textbook interesting. You might think it's dry. That's okay. You didn't choose to take the class. You don't have to find it complex or multifaceted or absorbing like I do. That's fine. But the point remains that future AP World students and I deserve a curriculum that will prepare me for the exam. I'm asking you to approve this new textbook tonight. That's what your students need. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so the next item is the president's report, and we're going to start, I'm going to pass it off, actually, to have Dr. Bolton and Mr. Dauber talk about a recent great development for the school district.
Well, I'm going to ask Mr. Dahlberg if he'd come up to the public comment microphone, because he has 3.2 million reasons for us to be thankful. So, Mr. Dahlberg, I know you like to talk about money and saving money especially, but if you could briefly give us an overview of the phone call that we were on this week and what that will mean for the district moving forward. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Collins, for the chance to speak tonight. On Wednesday of last week, the district's latest bond issue went to pricing on the market by PNC Capital Markets. They're our bond underwriting company. And the reason for our bond issue this year was to refinance an issue that's been in place for construction that was done at the tech school. That issue was from 2014, and it finally became callable this spring. So the board made the decision in the fall to go work on the refinancing for that issue because the interest rates were at all-time lows. So we went through the process of a bond issue, which is a long drawn-out process with a lot of documentation and a lot of time working with the underwriters, bond counsel, the school district counsel, Mr. Miller's firm, getting ready to go to the market. So we did that Wednesday. The market was a little scary on Tuesday evening, as the folks that we were working with were talking about treasury rates that were starting to get a little jumpy and scary in the municipal bond market following those treasury rates. So I guess what they did the best was to scare me on Tuesday evening, so before we got to the market on Wednesday. But the market held for us, which was great, and we took a bond issue that was in place that had bond payments out through the year 2044. We refinanced that, we restructured that debt service so that debt service is now paid off at the end of fiscal year 2028. And through that process of lower interest rates and restructuring debt service, we are saving $3.2 million for the district over the next 10 years or so.
What was that?
$3.2 million. Mr. Tim Kerr from PNC Capital Markets will be at our February finance meeting. He will present the entire bond issue results to the committee. So if you're interested in learning all the details, all the ins and outs, that's why he'll be there for that. So.
Mr. Delbert, one more number besides a thank you to you and your department for constantly looking at what's best for the district and bringing it in front of the board for their consideration. I deeply appreciate that, and the fiscal awareness that you have in terms of timing for those things. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's why I want you to stay at the microphone. Based on our current debt structure, and assuming no new debt between now and then, the district will be completely debt-free by June of 29. Is that accurate?
Yeah, fiscal year 28-29, we'll make our last debt service payment. Actually, the fall of 28, we will, in that August, we'll make a debt service payment, and we will be officially out of debt.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think I speak for all of us that we really appreciate, like Dr. Bolton said, you have a gift for these kinds of things, and it's really benefiting our community, so thank you. So for the rest of the President's report, I don't want to take too much time, but since this is our first business meeting with our new members, I just wanted to kind of give an idea of what the goals are that I can determined basically from speaking with them and having our retreat. They have a focus on academic rigor for sure. They want to get everybody, or I should say we all want to have a renewed focus on strengthening those academics. And someone mentioned gifted education. Certainly that would be an area I know that we've done, and the IU did in previous years. They came and they did an audit of our gifted and made some suggestions, and that will be part of everything that we review because it's certainly important. We would like the lessons that we teach children not to leave anything out. Nobody wants anything left out. We want them to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly about the United States, about this country that they live in the world. And we just want to make sure that those lessons have the full scope and multiple perspectives provided. But a lot of what the focus is for this particular year, it seems, and it's not just in Pennridge, it's in school districts everywhere, is that the focus now has parents have been brought back into the equation in a way that maybe we kind of slipped out before. I guess the kids being home from the pandemic, parents were getting a look at what kids are learning, and they have some questions and they want to be involved, and we believe that to be a very legitimate concern and something that a school district should recognize and respect. So that will be one of our goals, to involve parents in that, parents in their education with their children. And then also just to make sure that, as we've already started doing, that what we're offering to students is developmentally appropriate. And we're in a new world now, and there's lots of different topics that some families will want to delve into and some families won't, and some will want to do it at a certain age and others will want to wait. And I think it's incumbent upon schools to really look at what we're doing and make sure that we're matching what is developmentally appropriate. So I think that's a good goal for us as well. And then just one other item about, I know that people are aware of stories that have been in the public and some things that have been misunderstood and maybe misrepresented lately. It's disappointing to have those things happen. And I wonder if the goal of those things, when people go outside the chain of command, like when someone comes to a board member and says, my kid has a problem with, this class, we always say, have you spoken to the teacher? In other words, you need to start at the beginning and give a person respect to ask that teacher what's going on and get his or her point of view. And I would hope that people would always do that in these situations as well. If there's something going on in the district, to come to the people that can give you the answers. Because when you go outside and you provide that information to the media, it seems that the goal is really sensationalism and not looking for solutions. So I hope that will, change in the near future. And also, if you, as community members, if you see a report and the report is talking about people, but nowhere in that report do they actually talk to the people that they're reporting to you about, that should be a clue that maybe you're not getting the full story. And again, I would ask that you go to the people that can give you those answers. So that was that. My one little request is that everybody, and we have had some successes recently with local newspapers. We've talked to them about what they have chosen to print. I know community members have talked to them. I have personally talked to them about what they choose to print and the responsibility there that they have. And we did get some good responses that there should be more discernment and deciding, is this really something that's helpful? Is it accurate? Is it the right representation of what's happening? And what's our role in making sure the community gets the truth? So the next thing on my list is there's legislation. Maybe it's coming a little bit late, but I learned at the IU meeting that there's legislation that is looking to no longer have school boards tied to having to print the notice of a meeting in a newspaper, which in this day and age, when you can do it through other means, could help school boards to be able to convene and have meetings and make decisions a little bit faster. And that went through the House and is going to the Senate. I just thought that was interesting. And the final thing I wanted to touch on, because we did have a question about it, if you saw back in the fall, there was an issue with the National School Boards Association where a letter was sent and it characterized parents who came to school boards in an awful way. And then there was a reaction from state school board associations. 28 of them have distanced themselves, and I think 19 of them have officially stopped paying their dues, have withdrawn their membership. Pennsylvania has withdrawn their membership, but unfortunately recently there was new details that were released that there's yet another agency, the Department of Education, someone there who may have been involved in that situation. And I was disappointed to see that, but of course that's just an allegation and you always want to let somebody explain that. So I was intending to speak to the board about it, whether we would want to say something as a board to PSBA to see if they would be sending something on anyone's behalf to the NSBA, maybe the Department of Education, but that would be a discussion we have. But I just wanted to let the community know we saw it. We don't appreciate the characterization of parents. We certainly welcome parents to come to our school board meetings and express your concerns, and we will respect them. So I just wanted to make sure that was known. All right, and that was all I had.
Thank you, Mrs. Cullen. Are we good to go, Ms. Cooper? Nice. I want to introduce to you and congratulate Sophia and Sean. These two Pennridge High School students were selected for the Hugh O'Brien or the Hobie Leadership Conference. It is one of America's foremost youth leadership conferences every year, and we're able to nominate two students. And so we're really thrilled for Sophia and Sean and really look forward to the leadership lessons that they'll learn at the Hobie Youth Conference. Next, just want to celebrate some of the fifth graders at Guth Elementary School who have given up their recess time to help Miss Knight with a mural in the lunchroom that also allows them to practice their critical art skills and to help Guth look even more spectacular than it already does. Next, I want to introduce you to some kids who love math. Mrs. Dana Pavichny, who's one of our district instructional coaches, has been helping out our students and teachers at the elementary level, evaluating their math knowledge on Freckle. Freckle Math is an individualized practice tool that meets students at their level and provides support where they need it. We love seeing our students engaged and having fun with math. Next, a big shout out to the Pennridge South Middle School Student Council and the high school men's soccer team for their Pink Out fundraising efforts this past fall to support breast cancer research for Grandview Health. Don't know if you can read the checks, but together these groups donated over $2,000 to Grandview Health. Next, we want to congratulate William. William is a Pennridge senior in the Welding and Fabrication Technology program at the Upper Bucks County Technical School and was named Student of the Month for December. We're proud of William. And with that introduction to the great programs that happen at Tech, I want to remind you that the Tech School is now accepting online applications for the 22-23 school years. Many of the popular programs fill very quickly, so we would encourage all students to complete their application if they're interested, students in grades 8 through 11, and those applications are due by February 12th, and they can learn more and get the application at www.ubtech.org. Next, we'd like to congratulate our very own Leanna Goodrich, who is our world language German teacher and department head. She is featured in a new book called Teach German with a Sense of Humor. We're proud of Frau Goodrich. Her chapter, which is pictured here, is on promoting a positive learning environment in the classroom using humor. Many of our high school students in the last couple weeks had their art featured in an exhibit at the Sellersville Museum earlier in January. Students got to choose their pieces and design their own displays. This was a wonderful opportunity for our community to see our students' talents, but also to give the students real-world creation and design experiences in the community. The high school athletic department held the first college signing day of the year at the end of the fall season. Congratulations to all of our seniors who committed to playing collegiate sports. We would encourage you to like and to follow our Pennridge Athletic Department. They have a brand new experience and presence on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter that would allow you to stay up to date with all the wonderful things that are happening with our student athletes as well as schedules. Our Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service was all scheduled and ready to go. Unfortunately, Mother Nature was not completely our friend on that day, However, the schools will all continue their service projects individually at their school through the month of January, and many of the pictures you see, we were still able to donate many of the needed items to local charities. And we're already planning for next year and looking forward to that. So a huge thank you to Dr. Rabarchek and his team for planning that day. And next year, I'm sure it'll be 50 and sunny. Go Bills. All right, too soon. Sorry. All right.
That's terrible.
This month, our Title I schools hosted a parent workshop and welcomed Fine Motor Boot Camp to help parents learn how to enrich their children's cognitive, language, and fine motor skills. And kindergarten orientation. Last week, our elementary teams held a kindergarten orientation Kinder Carnival, and it was a huge success. It was a new model, and it was really appreciated by our parents and our youngest Pennridge Rams. They were introduced to what kindergarten would be like and enjoyed games, prizes, crafts, much more, and got to meet some of the teachers that they'll know next year. Just a thank you to all the families who made that a priority that night, and to our teachers, staff, and even our mascots who made the great evening possible for all the students and their families. Next, we invite you to join us this Thursday, January 27th, for the next Pennridge Community Partnership event. Sports medicine physician Dr. Dale Bautista, who's with Grandview Health, will speak about health and wellness through movement, the effects the pandemic has had on our physical well-being. The event is this Thursday, and it'll be held in the Green Gym from 7 to 8:30. Childcare is provided for all elementary age students as long as you register in advance. This is another outgrowth of our new partnership with Grandview Health and St. Luke's Penn Foundation to look to bring these three organizations together to provide educational opportunities for our families and communities. For additional information, to see previous presentations, for resources from all three organizations, and to register for childcare, you can visit www.pennridge.org/community-partnership. And finally, each January is designated as School Board Appreciation Month, and is our opportunity to formally thank each school board member for their service to this district and our community. These 9 members spend countless hours each month reviewing information, preparing for meetings, attending meetings, reading emails, reading lots of emails, and attending school and community events. And did I mention that they're all volunteers? The Pennsylvania School Boards Association, or PSBA, estimates that members across the state spend on average 14 hours a month on school board matters alone, and that doesn't include the conversations that happen at Landis and at the travel basketball games and on the soccer fields. So I want to personally say thank you to this board for your dedication to our students, to our staff, the families, and all of the taxpayers in Pennridge, and to present you later on tonight with a small token of appreciation. If you can see in the picture of what is coming, the Ram coasters that are in that picture were designed and created as part of the STEM program by the North Middle School students and Mr. Connolly, their teachers. And they really, really are special when you get a chance to see them. So to the board members, thank you very much, and I hope you appreciate your gift.
Thank you. Hey, Dr. Bolton, I just wanted to comment on the kindergarten carnival that happened with Dr. Barchek and Stephanie Washam and Joan Colezzo's hard work. I was at the tech meeting, but my husband took my soon-to-be kindergartner. She could not stop talking about it for 2 days. She could not wait to go back to the carnival. She had so much fun. She wouldn't leave. She was very upset when she had to leave the carnival because she didn't want it to be over. So it was a huge hit and a lot of really cool activities. So I just wanted to share that.
That's awesome. Thank you for the personal story. I need to also recognize 2 donations. Thank you for the donation of a Spin Shot Plus 2 tennis ball machine that will be used by both our boys and girls tennis teams, and that's from an anonymous source. I would also like to thank the Bedminster Parent Teacher Group for donating a Gaga pit for the Bedminster Elementary Playground. And that is the superintendent report, and at this point we will turn it over to one of our 2 favorite seniors, Austin, for the student liaison report.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. Good evening, Pennridge community. I don't have much information for you tonight, so I won't take up much of your time. Throughout January, our student council has primarily been focused on preparing for the Winter Ball coming up in a week and a half on Saturday, February 5th. The dance will be held in the White Gym and cafeteria as usual from 7 o'clock to 10 p.m., outfitted with this year's theme of Midnight in Paris. The student body is very excited for this event, and we begin selling tickets at lunch next Monday for $10 each. Also, tomorrow marks the first day of the second semester, so that signals we are already halfway through the school year. And like I said, that is indeed all from me, so I hope everyone has a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. We're going to move to the approval of the consent calendar. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar items A through I.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wers. Are there any comments from board members? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstentions? No. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, and then that's all I had for the consent calendar, and we're going to move to the committee reports. Ms. Batisky, activities.
Thank you. The Activities Committee held a committee meeting on January the 3rd, and as a result, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2022-23 Pennridge School District calendar.
Second.
Okay.
A second from Mr. Reese.
Yes, it was moved by Ms. Batisky, seconded by Mr. Rice. Any comments from board members?
Yes, I am not going to be supporting the calendar at this time because I have concerns about, number one, October 10th is a professional development day for us, but not the other two sending districts, so our tech kids would miss tech. On April 6th, we have a half day, so the PM kids will miss tech. I'm not clear on the snow makeup day after Easter. I know all three of us have a snow makeup day, but we ran into an issue this year because the way that we make up snow days was different than the other two sending districts. I also would prefer we not have that day anyway, but that's another issue. And then the Monday after Thanksgiving, there's really one district. Aside from us, there's one district going each way, and so the tech school would really follow whatever our decision is, and I would prefer that we not have school that Monday after Thanksgiving, and then the tech would also not have school, so they wouldn't miss that day. But due to those conflicts, I think we did a really good job the last couple years of not having conflicts, and with these conflicts for our tech kids, I don't support the calendar. Thank you.
I didn't know if there were other comments.
Oh, sorry. Any other comments? Dr. Bolton was going to offer some insight there.
Just a couple of overviews of the calendar for those of you who may not have had a chance to look at it online. The first day of school is always dictated by when Labor Day falls. And so if Labor Day is early, then we start school after Labor Day. If Labor Day is late, we start school prior to. So just like this year, next year's first day of school is the last Monday in August, which is August 29th. We do share the Upper Beck Tech School with Palisades and Quakertown, and so those three districts do get together every year to look at our calendar. We currently have 182 student days, and they each have 181 student days. And so there will be a day of conflict because we go to school one extra day from them. And the October Professional Learning Day, not only is it one of the most valuable days of the year in terms of it's the right time for teachers once we're a month into school to be able to focus on goals for the year and district goals for the year, to be able to still implement them, but it is that one day that will be different. Currently, the last day of school for students is a Friday, and it is June 9th. So I just wanted to give that update for people who may not have seen the calendar.
Just a clarifying question. If we have school, you're saying we have extra days, but that's a day that they have school that we don't, which means it's creating an additional conflict. Because October 10th, both other schools have school, or both other districts have school, and we do not. So that's not where we're using an extra day. That's where we're also taking, another. It's not like there's a day that we're having an extra day instead of them. Are you?
I believe my point was that at some point our students will not be able to go to tech school, and so that day next year will be October 10th. You're right, it could be another day in the calendar. It could be the last day of school, it could be a different day, but it is October 10th, and that's there from the professional learning standpoint.
Okay, if we don't have any other comments, we have the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion carries 8-1.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the high school students' 9-day trip to Peru from June 22nd, 2023 to June 30th of 2023.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mrs. Batisky and seconded by Mr. Wers. Are there any comments from board members?
Enjoy.
Yes, enjoy it. We're excited. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and I'm an aye. That motion carries 9-0.
And the next Activities Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 7th.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to curriculum, we just have one item for approval tonight. I would like to make a motion.
Mrs.
Sure.
Cullen, could you please separate that motion?
Yeah, you could do A and then B separately.
Yeah, let me just, I do not, let's see. There we go. Wrong button. Okay, so we're just going to vote for them. It does have them here as both together, but we can separate. And so I'll make a motion to approve the following curriculum improvement proposal, the AP World History Modern Program. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Wers. Is there any comment?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm not able to support this book. It has nothing to do with that it's covering Western Civ. It has nothing to do with any of that, but the book is basically a book of conclusions that the kids are supposed to memorize and then by the end of the year take a test, and I don't think that that represents particularly an AP course well. I think that there should be more critical thinking and the kids should be learning and reading the history and thinking for themselves and coming to their own conclusions. And for that reason, I'm not able to support this book.
Okay. We did have some good conversation about the AP World History book, and I don't think Mrs. Newman is here tonight, but she shared that I think it's 84% of her students got at least a 4 or a 5. And we talked about the unique nature of AP courses and what the purpose of them is. And so that there was some discussion, just so you know, about possibly having different courses that wouldn't be geared toward that AP course that has a particular mission of getting students ready for an AP exam. We could certainly explore that, but I just wanted to offer that that was brought up at the meeting. Are there any other comments about the World History book? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that motion passes 8-1. And then I have a motion to approve the following curriculum improvement proposal, and it is Rock Band 1 and 2.
I'll second it.
Oh, I thought you would let Mr. Wurst second it. All right, so it was seconded by Mr. Rice. Does anybody have any comments? We're excited about this one too. There was a lot of excitement at the curriculum meeting. This is a class, if you didn't hear the curriculum committee meeting, that is going to have students actually doing different instruments, writing songs, collaborating and performing with the hope that they will actually go out and have gigs too. So we are excited to offer this. Any other comments on Rock Band?
Yeah, actually, I'm a big supporter of the new music thing, and I've just been on the board for less than a year, and it's great that they have such success. And I'd like to see more and more guitars, keyboards, and other things in the school, and having a rock band and rock thing similar to the marching band, the jazz band. There should also be a rock band, and hopefully we can have that happen in the future.
See no other comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's 9-0. Thank you. And I forgot to say that the curriculum committee did meet on January 3rd, and our next meeting is February 7th. With that, we'll move on to facilities with Mr. Cormack.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, we do have in the agenda the meeting minutes from the January 10th meeting, so that's available for your review. I have a motion to approve the GESA, or better known as the Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement, Amendment number 3.
I'll second it.
Okay, it was seconded by Mr. Rice. Do we have any comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the Seminole excavating change order for the high school tennis courts, unsuitable material, in the amount of $32,678.24.
Second?
Okay, seconded by Mr. Wers. Is there any comment from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion 9-0.
Can't get used to saying it.
Next, we have a motion to approve the BSI electrical change order for West Rock Hill Elementary School in the amount of $18,532. It should be made known that we will get reimbursed for this expenditure by SiteLogics.
I'll second.
Okay, that was seconded by Mr. Rice. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Number E, we have a motion to approve Sargent Enterprises, Inc. for asbestos removal abatement bid at the Sellersville Elementary School in the amount of $75,000.
Second.
Okay, it was seconded by Mr. Wers. Are there any comments from board members? I'm just noticing that there's not an attachment. I was wondering if there's an attachment that would go into the record, like put that there.
If the board would like an attachment, we can certainly make that available.
Okay, I was just curious because a lot of the times you'll have like an invoice or, a paper that shows the actual information. Okay.
Yeah, the information from the committee meeting would have been the bids themselves, and so we're not acting on the bids, we're just awarding the winning bid.
Right.
And so if people would like to see the bids, they could go back to the committee report,
Okay.
or we could attach it there if you'd like.
Oh, thank you. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Approval of the motion for the obsolete items A through H.
Second it.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Cormack and seconded by Mr. Rice. Are there any comments from board members? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
The next Facilities Committee meeting will be held February 14th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and our next committee report is Finance. Mr. Rice?
All right, we met on January 10th. I can't top Mr. Dalbert's 3.2 million reasons why we're in a better position than we are, but I will at best try. But I'd like to request a motion to approve contracts A through G below. They are all listed as items. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moved by Mr. Rice and seconded by Mr. Cormack. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Okay, no. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Next, I'm going to be requesting a motion to approve the Insight Financial Services lease resolution for 2021 and schedule of assets for the one-to-one laptop program approved May 10th, 2021. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you.
Moved by Mr. Rice and seconded by Mr. Wers. Are there any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
All right, and finally, I'd like to request a motion to approve the high school class of 2025 Executive Council. That is a new account. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, sir.
Moved by Mr. Rice and seconded by Mr. Cormack. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
All right, our next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for February 14th. Yes, that is Valentine's Day, so what better day than Valentine's Day to have a meeting?
Chocolates and flowers, don't forget. All right, the next committee report is Personnel. Mr. Russell.
Our notes of our meeting of January 3rd, 2022 are attached. Out of that committee and some information after that, there are some motions that follow. The first was the motion to approve the adult evening coordinator job description.
I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion was by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mr. Rice. Are there any comments or questions? All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and opposed? The motion carries 9-0. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Bolton.
Mr. Russell, before you continue, I'd like to put out a request, now that we've approved the updated job description, that if there's anyone you know who's looking to work on their own schedule, very few hours, and money's based off of how well you do in terms of bringing in. We really would like to expand our adult evening program. We have about 7 or 8 adult evening programs that have run for many, many years, and those we're able to maintain because we have people in-house who have been doing that. But we'd like to expand that. We have wonderful facilities. We have wonderful people in the community who I think would come in and do that, but we needed someone to help coordinate that. So if you're looking at the job description and you go, I'm thinking of, right, have that person reach out to me, I'd love to talk to him or her about it because we'd love to find somebody for that position. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
The next motion deals with approval of the high school assistant principal, and this is motion to appoint Alyssa Woloff as high school assistant principal at a salary of $139,191, effective date to be determined.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it was moved by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mr. Rice. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries 9-0. Dr. Bolton?
I'd just like to introduce you to Dr. Alyssa Walla, because she happens to be in the house, and also tell you a little bit about her. We are thrilled. We are happy for Mr. Schoonover, who is retiring, but we are sad to see Mr. Schoonover go. But we do have a wonderful replacement to come in for the class of 2022 and get them through to graduation. And so Dr. Woloff, who was an English teacher to begin her career for 6 years, is currently an adjunct professor at Drexel and Delaware University, been doing that for 8 years. She was a house principal at Central Bucks High School South for 3 years and has been a district curriculum supervisor for 14. She has degrees in secondary education from Bloomsburg, her master's in elementary education from Holy Family, a master's in educational administration from Gwynedd Mercy, and a doctorate in school systems leadership from Widener. And most importantly, she's an outstanding instructional leader, has a strong student focus, and is a wonderful human being. So Alyssa, if you would just rise and say hi to everybody. Welcome to the Pennridge family.
The next motion relates to the approval of the K-12 science supervisor, and that motion is to appoint Eric Daney as science supervisor at a salary of $129,890, effective date to be determined.
Okay, I'll second that. So it was moved by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Do we have any comments from board members?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mrs. Blondin.
I just had a question on a little bit more information on job description for that one.
I defer to Dr. Bolton on that.
I'll have to forward it to you from an email standpoint so that you can read all of it. But primarily, if you think about the supervisor's responsibilities, that one of the shifts that we've made in my 4 years here is to provide as many resources directly into the classroom as we can. And so we've lessened the number of supervisors, but put them in charge of making sure that they are helping to coordinate that. So if you think about classroom supports, that looks like professional learning on instructional best practices for teachers. And so on those professional learning days, the curriculum supervisors are often working with their staff on what are those topics specific to the 4 core areas that need professional development or general teaching instruction, and do that, as well as our curriculum work, right? Because we know that from a classroom standpoint, 2 of the things that best predict student success and student achievement are quality teachers, and so improving them, and a quality curriculum. And so our curriculum supervisors in the 4 core areas, we use department leaders and lead teachers in the others, but in the 4 cores, those 4 people are primarily responsible for those 2 items that they go. But we will make sure that we forward the whole job description to all the board members.
First, I would just like to share that I'm not going to be supporting this motion, and I want to just make it clear that it has absolutely nothing to do with the candidate. It looks like he is a well-qualified candidate with a great background and experience. My concern is, you know, I've been on the board for 6 years now. I've never been in support of having these supervisors. When I first got on the board, we had department heads who had a stipend and 1 period off and taught the rest of the day, and the teachers appreciated that the people who were supervising were people who also were still teaching in the classroom, so they could walk the walk, as opposed to being someone who's out of the classroom. My concern is that we have too many people supervising other adults and not enough people hands-on in the classrooms. That then moved to having 6 full-time supervisors, which I didn't support then. When Dr. Bolton got here, he switched it to 4 supervisors and 2 instructional coaches, which just means they don't evaluate, but you still have 6 people over the teachers. And since then, we've also added a data supervisor, so we've actually increased the number of supervisors. My concern is that we are spending roughly probably $800,000 when you take into account maybe even between $800,000 and $1 million on just these 4 supervisor positions. There's actually 5 now. That's a lot of instructional aids that we could purchase to actually push into the classrooms and provide support to students and meet their individual needs. We could cover that without expense instead of having all of these other people constantly overseeing teachers. I think that we're just going in the wrong direction by continuing to inflate the administration. I think we need to focus more on kids.
Okay, Dr. Bolton, did you want to offer that? Okay. So my hope for the supervisors, and I would just say, as I was talking about earlier with the board that is really wanting to improve the academic rigor, that our expectation would be, at least my expectation, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but that these people, because we have people, each one, as you were describing, dedicated to a different core subject, which makes sense, provided that it's going to be used for the goal of improving the academics and really doing that work. And just to make, if we can certainly explore more teaching assistants. I don't want it to be presented as an either or. Certainly we'd be very supportive of having more teachers assistants and so on in the classroom. And I just want to confirm that we're not choosing between this or that. If you
Right, and I mean, obviously, I said in my first answer to Mrs. Blumgren that from a student achievement standpoint, we best impact students by directly impacting the classroom. Right, we best impact the classroom by making sure we have solid curriculum and we make our teachers as awesome as they can be in terms of resources, in terms of best practice, in terms of instructional techniques. Our supervisors don't solely do that. That is not their responsibility alone, but they are crucial to that task. And they are really good at what they do in terms of that piece. We've talked about this situation in terms of classroom supports and instructional assistants. We are not choosing one over the other, right? So we would love to continue to have that conversation about an instructional model and how best to support the classroom, whatever that looks like, whether that's instructional aids or other resources or another idea that someone has. This doesn't preclude that. This is not money we're spending on this that prevents us from spending money on some other really good idea that impacts our classrooms. So,
thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. And I feel like I do understand. I know when you look at the dollar amount, it's a lot of money. However, as teachers with the time in the day, like you are basically on point with your students, you don't have a lot of that time. So I understand, like, if they're really good at what they do, then they do take a lot of things to, as a teacher, put your best foot forward to be able to educate the kids. So I understand the crucial, part of having it. So I would just be, like you said, you're going to forward that to me. That'd be great just to see. And K through 12, that's a lot of grades. So, thanks.
Okay, if there's no other comment, we have a motion on the floor that was made by Mr. Russell. I believe I seconded, actually.
I guess the only other thing I wanted to add is when it was switched to 4, it went from being specific to primary versus secondary. And so now by expanding it K to 12, you're basically taking people who are only certified to teach either K to 6 or 6 to 12, and they are then in charge of making the decisions for K to 12, which I don't think I don't think ends up with the best result.
Okay. So are there any, I'm just going to say that we should take the vote now. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So the motion carries 8-1. Mr. Russell?
Sorry, Mr. Russell, I need to interrupt one more time
Sure,
because we're
sure.
also fortunate that Mr. Eric Daney is in the house, and I would like to introduce you to him and tell you a little bit about him. Eric is being hired as the K-12 supervisor for science and STEM. He has his bachelor's in physics and secondary education from Albright College, his master's in educational leadership from Wilkes University. He was a high school physics and physical science teacher for 9 years. He was then a K-12 science curriculum supervisor in the Downingtown School District for 4 years, and most recently a high school assistant principal at Pottsgrove High School for 7 years. He was involved in developing the innovative curriculum at the Downingtown STEM Academy, has twice been nominated for the Pennsylvania Assistant Principal of the Year, and has impressed us as a relational-focused, student-focused teacher, classroom advocate, and a really good guy. So we're excited to work with Eric, and we welcome you to the Pennridge family. Eric, if you'd stand up, it's the week mark. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
The next motion relates to approval of substitute rates and increase. So this would be, and I'm going to keep these together unless somebody wants me to separate them out, but motion to approve the following. A, increase substitute custodial rate to $16 per hour, and B, increase substitute nurse rate to $155 per diem.
I'll second it.
Okay, it was moved by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mr. Rice. Are there any comments from board members? Okay, seeing none.
Can I just make
Oh,
one?
yes, sir.
I just want to provide context to the next 3 items because the next 3 items all relate. Obviously, you've read there are staffing situations in school districts across the United States. Some of that is just to the fact there are fewer teacher candidates. I believe in the last 10 years that there are 60% fewer people getting their certification coming out of Pennsylvania colleges. So if there were 10,000 10 years ago, there are now only 4,000. And so we're all competing for a much smaller group. And so we are looking for ways to continue to provide quality people in our classrooms for our students and in our support roles. And so we have multiple items because some are within the contract. The next one has to do with the SS subservice, which is a contract that we use, but they only do some positions. And so this one is other positions, and then there's a referral bonus that we'll look at to try to recruit people who will stay for at least 90 days, and then we hope they'll love us and stay longer than that. But these are related, and they're all trying to continue to recruit and get people in our classrooms for our kids in our support staff positions. So thank you, Mr. Russell.
I think we still need to vote on that. Joe.
We do.
Yes. So if there aren't any other comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Okay, motion carries 9-0.
The next motion relates to the approval of the addendum to the ESS substitute staffing agreement, and that's attached as a document as well. So that's the motion.
Second.
All right, it was moved by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mr. Wurz. Are there any comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
The next motion relates to the approval of a referral bonus, and this is a motion to approve a referral bonus to current employees to be paid after the referred person completes 90 workdays. The district will pay $500 to the employee for each referral that subsequently becomes a hired employee and completes 90 workdays in the district.
Second.
Okay, it was moved by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mr. Cormack. Are there any comments from board members? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
The next motion relates to an agreement between the Pennridge Education Association and Pennridge Board of Directors, and this motion is to approve the attached side letter agreement between Pennridge Education Association and the Pennridge Board of School Directors.
I'll second it.
Okay, it was moved by Mr. Russell and seconded by Mr. Rice. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
And the final motion out of this committee is to approve the attached side letter agreement between the Pennridge Educational Support Professionals Association and the Pennridge Board of School Directors, and that's attached to the agenda as well.
Second.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Russell, seconded by Mr. Cormack. Are there any comments or questions from board members? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
And just the announcement, the next Personnel Committee meeting will be held on Monday, February 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. And the next item is the Pennridge Community Committee. Mr. Riss.
All right, we met on December 20th. Actually, it was a little while ago. We had some great conversations, I think, great discussions, great collaboration. There was only 12 of us out of 20, so just barely a quorum. We did have a lot of good conversations in regards to the mission statement, a lot of good discussion back and forth. There was no final mission statement approved that is moving to motion. That is why there was nothing on the agenda to move forward for motion. So we will have further conversation in the February meeting where we can actually have the at least 8 remaining members that were not in attendance actually have some input on the conversation and the mission statement. That is all I got there. The next community committee is going to be on February 23rd.
Okay, thank you. And the next committee report is the IU. Mrs. Banis-Clemens.
Thank you. The report, or I'm sorry, the IU, thank you. The IU met on January 18th, and there were several mini reports. One was the Programs and Services mini report. The Bucks IU Programs and Services Division has been working to expand and enhance university partnerships that are a benefit to not only the Bucks IU team members, but also to our school districts. There are different kinds of partnerships that have been established with our local universities, including tuition cost savings, credit arrangements for continuing professional education, and program endorsements. Expanding on the program endorsements piece, because I feel like that's the one that probably less people are familiar with. A program endorsement indicates knowledge in new and emerging areas where formal certification does not exist. A non-instructional endorsement is intended to improve an educator's skills in dealing with complex educational issues and can be added on to an existing level 1 or level 2 certificate. Examples would include STEM and SEL. Another report was on special education. In March of 2020, the Bucks IU, due to the pandemic, expanded instructional technology. A small committee was put together to conduct a needs assessment, resulting in the Bucks IU moving to a one-to-one initiative. From May 2020 to June 2021, the first phase was providing a laptop or iPad that allowed them to connect with their teacher and therapist during virtual instruction. The Bucks IU also adopted 2 learning management systems, Seesaw and Canvas, similar to us, to help staff make instruction and resources accessible for students and their families from any location. An instructional technology committee was also formed to support and expand this initiative. And the final report is on the programs and services budget. We had our preliminary approval of the programs and services budget, which is the only portion of the budget that is partially directly funded by the 13 sending districts through a combination of the enrollment and usage. They continue to expand, and that expansion takes on additional cost, but that cost does not get passed on to the school district. As long as I've been on the board and prior, they have never raised the specific rates. So the only time you pay more to the IU is if you either have more students or you are utilizing more services. The IU's budget is about $200 million. So in comparison, this budget is only a little over $2 million, so it's about 1% of the total budget, and it's the contribution is basically from entrepreneurial efforts and as well as 2 different formulas. One is $4.50 per student. That is the rate that is set. That it has not changed in my time here, and I think actually it hasn't changed in Dr. Hoffman's entire tenure. There is a 0.2% increase in enrollment, which made that go up because in the county there's a 0.2% increase of the number of students, but the cost per student has not increased, and the aid ratio that's decided by the state has also stayed the same, so the amount that we would pay would only change based on our enrollment or if we increase any kind of usage. I think that's it. Our next meeting is February 15th.
Okay. Thank you. And our next report is the Upper Bucks Tech. Mr. Cormack.
Thank you. Mr. Bolton and I always think on the same level when we give our reports. The VOTEC is now accepting online applications for the 2022-2023 school year, Again, the last date is February 12th of this year. Second of all, we have the Exercise Science and Sports Technology program, which has been initiated. We're going to have our first in-person formal meeting, which is going to be on January 27th at 6 p.m. at the tech school. So if you have any interest, there's additional information on the website where you contact the web school directly. But we are holding that first information hearing on this exciting program, which is brand new for the tech school. Something a little different this time than I've done in the past. Really going to look towards how the tech school is being interfaced with the local community. And we have business and industry partnerships. This past month, Carroll Engineering Corporation hosted a welding students to tour North Wales Water Tower project. They learned different welding components, and they were just fascinated, the students, by being on site and looking at how their future in welding might come into play with projects of this nature. Certainty and St. Laurent is in Quakertown. They are now creating a partnership with the Votech School to look to bring students in from a part-time standpoint. Nicomatic, I must say it's one of the projects that my organization funded, creating a partnership in the mechatronics program, which is another exciting program that the tech school has put forth. Hydro Instruments, it's a cooperative education partnership where they're actually going to have students come in and work with them. Liberto's Auto Service, another cooperative education partnership, as well as the Percy Giant baking department. So you're looking at the local community really taking that advantage, but working cooperatively with the Votech School students and looking at future jobs. And again, last but not least, talking about keeping things in the community, Delaware Valley University, we're going to have our first student teacher in a long time, so I think that's great news. We're going to bring Del Val into the fold with student teaching at the tech school. That is my report for the activities. I do have a motion for the appointments of the Upper Bucks County Tech School Joint Operating Committee. It is with Ms. Megan Bennis-Clemens, myself, Mr. Rice as the members, Ron Wirtz as the alternate member.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
We need
Oh, you need, I'll second that. Okay, so it was moved by Mr. Cormack and seconded by Mrs. Cullen. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 9-0.
The next UBCTS meeting is for February 17th, 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cormack. So that brings us to old business. We do have one item in old business. It is a motion to approve the amended health and safety plan. We need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's moved by myself, seconded by Mr. Rice, and I think that we have a little bit of details that we were going to provide. Go ahead.
So the health and safety plan since March of 2020 has been a living, breathing document, and there have been multiple adjustments to the implementation depending on conditions as well as recommendations from state and local departments of health. In early January, there were changes that were made. And so the board did address and consider those changes as is appropriate. It is their responsibility solely to develop the health and safety plan. And so they did act to communicate that at that time and are now looking to ratify that change and have the public conversation that is required. The health and safety plan is a balance. Obviously, the focus on safety is the primary, as well as the conversation around asymptomatic individuals and the impact on a quarantine on students being allowed to attend school or to have enough staff members from a attending work standpoint. And so that is some of the rationale behind some of the changes that are being considered.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from board members?
Yes. So I think that the plan as written is perfect. I think that we spent a lot of time going over the language and making sure that the language is perfect. It specifically says that we will consider language from all of those entities so that nothing automatically gets put into this health and safety plan. It also says use strategies similar to those used with influenza, other infectious diseases in the event of a confirmed case of COVID-19. The issue is not the way that the plan is written. The issue is the implementation. The plan has not been implemented as written. The tech school has the plan written the same way and is implementing it accurately. We're clearly not using strategies similar to those used with influenza if we're adding all of these rules. And then we continue and now we're adding in language specifying numbers of days, masks, for certain numbers of days, close contact, those kinds of things. And I think that it's adding additional language that we shouldn't be adding. And my larger concern here is we've gotten to a point where we need to pull education out of making medical decisions for people. The plan was written perfectly so that people should consult with their doctors. Everyone's medical situation is different. Everybody reacts to COVID differently. They should consult their own doctors and follow the advice of their doctors regarding what they should and shouldn't do as far as when they should come back, when they shouldn't come back, and what they should do. I think we need to get out of the medical business.
Okay, so currently, Dr. Bolton, the practice was what for as far as days out? You had mentioned once about the FAQs and what the procedure is that we're following at this time. Well, not at this time, but prior to.
Right, so the FAQs have been updated multiple times since March of 2020, depending on what the topic is in terms of masks and quarantine and isolation and pieces like that. But are you talking about where were we currently prior to January 11th?
Yes.
Right. So prior to January 11th, there were some nuances to that because it did have to do with exposure and isolation, and so there wasn't one hard fast rule. But for the most part, the rule was that if you were exposed, that you then were isolated, you were quarantined for a certain amount of time, so 7 or 10 days, depending on where in the plan we were. And if you tested positive, then there was it came off of onset date, but it was a minimum of 10 days, 7 days if there was a negative test that was involved. So, and that was the most recent iteration of where we were. And so these returns are obviously less than either of those in terms of those pieces.
Okay. Oh, and I just wanted to offer as well that I don't know if Dr. Bolton already mentioned it. Forgive me if I'm repeating, but I think when he did say that it's a living, breathing document. It's something that's ongoing that we will review, and we are ratifying something that's already been in practice, but we're in constant state of review. So each day, because this is changing, we want to be flexible. We're going to continue to look at it. We have a commitment to that, and really the wishes are that we move as we can get back to, I don't want to use the phrase, the old normal. Let's just get back to normal, and so that's really where people want to go. This is a movement in that direction. So, all right, if there's no other comments, we will go to the vote. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 8-1. Thank you. All right. The next item is new business. Does anyone have any new business? Okay, seeing none. That brings us back to comments and questions from guests or the press, and we'll just remind you of Policy 903. Don't know if anybody new came in, but according to Policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent by email at psdschoolboard@pennridge.org. Thank you. Oh, I have them. Thank you. Okay, so give me 1 minute. I don't want to miss anybody's name.
Mrs. Cullen, I meant to add something else under old business, but I forgot. I just wanted to commend the administration on the direction for the social studies elementary curriculum, the fact that they are moving to developing that curriculum with our teachers and using that to dictate what instructional resources make sense to support that curriculum and doing that curriculum development and pulling together the great things that our teachers have been doing and getting to see the passion our teachers have shared in that last curriculum committee meeting. I'm really excited to see what they come up with, so I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So Matt Carbonaro.
Good evening, Pennridge
You
School.
you have to hit the
Microphone?
button.
Smiling.
Right, there you go.
The face?
Smiley face.
It's a profile.
It doesn't seem to be working.
Hold on a second.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
There you go.
sorry about that. Good evening, Pennridge School Board members. My name is Matt Carbonaro. I'm a resident of Percy. I would like to talk tonight about an email that was sent regarding about an event not discussing the events of January 6th, 2021 last year. A lot is what has been said in the public has been about missed learning opportunity, and schools should be using this time to educate students. If we want to teach our students about what happened that day, if we want to put this into our curriculum, we need to take and make sure all facts of what happened that day are fairly described. First of all, do not label what happened that day an insurrection. That was not an insurrection. In fact, no one has been charged with a crime committed to an insurrection. The Justice Department has already concluded that there was no pre-planning of this event. No elected official was killed or harmed. In fact, the only person to die that day was Ashley Babbitt, an unearned Air Force vet. January 6th was the day that the United States Congress was going to certify the 2020 presidential results. At the time, President Trump was speaking in D.C., like his many speeches in the past. He drew a huge crowd, told protesters to peacefully protest. Many Republicans had questions about the election integrity of that election. What transpired throughout that day leaves many unanswered questions. Why was security of the Capitol that day so ill-prepared? In the following months, the breach of the Capitol had many questions have come to light. One recent report in September, the New York Times confirmed that at least 2 FBI informants infiltrated Proud Boys, an alleged militia group that breached the Capitol. Defense attorneys disclosed this in court documents. I leave you with some questions that should be left for the students. Why hasn't the U.S. government released 14,000 hours of surveillance footage? Who planned the alleged pipe bombs at the RNC? Who gave the orders to the D.C. and Capitol Police to assault the protesters? Where was the Speaker of the House that day rejecting security at the Capitol? Who killed Ashley Babbitt? And why hasn't that person been charged with a crime? Why have so many personal liberties and freedoms been under attack? Again, if we want our students to learn the whole scope of that day, we should give them all the facts, including many lingering unanswered questions. I leave you with this. How come we don't teach our students about real insurrections like the summer of 2020, when cities across our country were burned to the ground and federal buildings were attacked by BLM and Antifa? I thank the board for listening to me tonight. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Ross McLennan? You're good? Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Clinton. So Joyce Stemler. Did she leave? I'm sorry. Okay. Stacy Smith.
I'm gonna pass.
All right. Alexis Shell.
There you go.
Alexis Shallow Hilltown. In the past few years, there have been several changes that have been made to our district that are detrimental to our high achievers. It has come to my attention that the curriculum committee is going to be asked to vote on the removal of the double lab period from high school science labs on 2/7. The proposal asks for the removal of the double lab period for academic and honors chemistry classes for the next school year, and will ask for the removal of the double lab periods from all other lab science courses the following year. This includes AP Sciences and second-year biology, chemistry, and physics courses. For AP Sciences, this will result in a loss of 25% of their instructional time. These are hard courses that emphasize the development of critical thinking and analysis skills. The amount of time given to these courses is crucial in developing these skills. The students need the time to think about their decisions when designing lab work and thinking through their errors to redesign later. The curriculum for these courses is determined by the college board, so teachers cannot modify the curriculum. The critical thinking opportunities that educators stress as being so important will have to be severely reduced or cut from the program with the loss of the double lab. We're already watching our district test scores plummet. How will this decision affect the AP Science test scores? In addition, our top-level kids have also suffered with a diminished gifted program at the high school. It's my understanding that since some of our administrative roles were modified several years ago, there has not been someone fully responsible for the gifted program. It used to fall on the high school supervisors, and when they were changed to K-12 supervisors, no one officially took responsibility for the high school gifted program. Recently, the responsibility was given to the newly created principal position at the high school. This individual is responsible for athletics, scheduling, and gifted. One person cannot possibly give each of these areas the time they deserve. A few years ago, there was one position responsible for gifted education. Why did that change? Pennridge has already been told by the state that their gifted program is not in compliance with state regulations. This year, gifted activities were not made available to students until January. The activities are thrown together and are very minimal compared to what was offered just 3 or 4 years ago. We are a large district that should be able to offer quality programs to all levels. In addition to being opposed to the dropping of the double lab period, I'm wondering why it's being done in such a rushed manner. The board is being asked to vote on February 7th regarding this change, and students will start to pick classes the next day. The change to the double lab period will influence what a student chooses for their courses for the next year. The updated program of studies cannot be made available to students and families with this change until the board votes. It appears that the board will be rushed into a vote and not given the opportunity to think about the repercussions of their actions. The public will not have the proper time to go over this change either. Why such a rush? I would encourage the board to vote no on this change for next year. More time is needed to understand how will this impact the students. I suggest you poll the students on how they think this will affect their learning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Laura Foster.
Hello again. Laura Foster, East Rock Hill. Actually, I'd like to start by thanking Ms. Colin for bringing up the point about going to the sources when we're here concerning information. Since January 5th, I've been repeatedly requested from Dr. Bolton clarification on Dr. Sir's published statements stating that school guidance counselors, social workers, and nurses not be able to discuss or use terms related to LGBTQ if a child is being bullied for being gay. And I'm still waiting for clarification. You hear me up here all the time talking about the statistics on how not affirming children's gender identity is of direct detriment to their mental health. I know this not only because I love children who identify as non-cisgender, but also because I'm a therapist. And it is my duty as a therapist to follow the ethical standards of my profession. Part of these include the NASW Code of Conduct. So, under the NASW Code of Conduct Ethical Standards, Section 210, Unethical Conduct of Colleagues, it is my responsibility to take action through formal channels such as the State Licensure Board if I believe a colleague has acted unethically. And whereas under Section 1.05, under Cultural Competency, Item B, social workers must take action against oppression, racism, discrimination, and inequalities. Whereas under NASW Code of Conduct Ethical Standards, Section 4, social workers' ethical responsibilities of professionals, Item 4.01 cultural competency. Social workers should base practice on recognized knowledge, including empirically based knowledge, relevant to social work, and social work ethic. Whereas on the NASW website, there is not one evidence-based practice or research study that supports this unprecedented move to strike LGBTQ language with children. We are then in a place where, if followed, the district's social workers would be in violation of their code of conduct. As a fellow social worker, I'm in violation of the same code of conduct if I do not make reasonable efforts to address ethics violations with my colleagues. If I'm unable to do so, I'm in violation of my code of conduct if I do not report ethics violations to the state licensure board. So if this is enacted, and this is what our school social workers are being asked to do, Dr. Dura has directly placed their clinical license in violation of their code of ethics and put their licenses at risk. If the district continues to disregard my request for clarity on her statement, administration is not putting my license at risk if I don't contact the licensure board. I am not putting my licensure at risk for this clearly discriminatory practice. I am again requesting that you provide any studies or data that support the efficacy of denying language around LGBTQ plus children and their support of mental health, preferably vetted by NASW and the APA. Thank you.
Ms. Foster, I appreciate your continued advocacy for our students and the multiple conversations we've had. I'm not going to read the emails that we've responded back and forth to because I don't feel like that's appropriate to share our personal communications. But I do want to say that what you're saying is not accurate. We have not directed our staff in any way to not support our students or to not use words associated with LGBTQ. As I clarified with you that the purpose of the one piece of the leaked communication that you got that was still being reviewed with our staff members had to do with making sure that if there was a situation at the elementary school where a student said something that was inappropriate, for instance, if they're out at the playground and they say, "You're gay," or something like that, that doesn't mean that turns into a conversation about LGBTQ with the classroom. And that's consistent with our communication around making sure that if that's a concern, that if we feel like that student was being mean and targeting a student because of LGBTQ, that conversation happened with their parents and not happen there in public with the classroom. And so, yes, that is true from a direction standpoint, but we have never once, nor does that memo, even as you read it without the context that was provided, ever say that our staff is not to use LGBTQ language with our students. So I don't normally respond to public comment, but I do want to make sure that's out there because some of the things that were said are not accurate. And so I did say to you that I'm not able to provide the justification for the change because the change, as you outlined, it has not been made. So I can't justify it because that change was not done. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton.
Thank you, Ms. Foster. We have another speaker. Thank you.
Okay. So next on the list is Janelle Montigny.
Janelle Montigny, Hilltown.
Janelle Montigny, Hilltown. I want to thank the school board for updating the health and safety plan to permit asymptomatic staff members and students who have been marginally exposed to COVID but have not tested positive to attend work and school. COVID has moved from the pandemic stage to the endemic stage, and individuals are now freely moving around the community, whether it be the grocery store, sporting events, or restaurants. Therefore, it makes sense to take that into account and treat school attendance in a similar fashion. I would like to add, though, that I do not agree with masks being in the safety plan for any reason. It's well established that cloth masks and surgical masks do not have any benefit in the transmission of COVID, only harm. In fact, yesterday I was at my kid's dentist appointment, and the dentist told me she's seen an increase in cavities in the last 2 years, and she's speculating that has to do with all the mask wearing. And she also told me about all the disgusting masks she sees when her kids come in the dentist's office that are covered in slobber when they come in. But that said, I still appreciate Pennridge has continued to lead the way in smart COVID mitigation strategies that keep our students in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Badillion, I have you down again. Do you, okay. I'm sorry.
David Doing, Percy Borough. I'd just like to touch on civics education. A brief that was issued in 2020 by the Brookings Institute stated that Americans' participation in civic life is essential to sustaining our democratic form of government. Without it, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people will not last, end quote. Of increasing concern is declining levels of civic engagement, evidence of limited civic knowledge, and extremely low public trust in government. Despite the fact that the core of our education system was built upon the idea that educational institutions play a central role in preparing American youth to be civically engaged, this goal seems to have been pushed aside over the past decades as other educational objectives have been prioritized. A Harvard Gazette article noted that the civics education now attracts just 1/1000th of the money spent on STEM subjects. And that's not to say anything bad about STEM subjects, but just a reality. However, there seems to be a renewed call for recommitting to civics education in K-12 institutions, both from conservatives and progressives alike. In 2018, Governor Tom Wolf signed into law Act 35, which requires all school entities to administer a locally developed assessment of U.S. history, government, and civics at least once to students during grades 7 through 12. And I know it's been incorporated to some extent at Pennridge. As one of the few social institutions present in basically every community across the country, schools can and should play a role in supporting civic engagement. Schools can do this by helping students develop and practice the knowledge, belief, and behaviors needed to participate in civic life. They can also directly provide opportunities for civic engagement by connecting young and old people alike across the community. And one great example of Pennridge doing this is the Veterans Day ceremony at North Middle School. I hope the district would consider doing more of those types of engagements across the district. Or through offering community service opportunities such as the MLK Day of Service, which I understand unfortunately didn't quite happen as planned. Furthermore, many districts like Pennridge have emphasized and focused on the need for students to develop 21st century skills. In the age of limited civic knowledge, growing polarization, and low public trust in government, civics education should be considered an essential component of developing 21st century skills. As diversity is also a goal for the district, this can also be incorporated into civics education. A political scientist, Paul Careers, states that civic education should be seen as a, quote, duty and delight, which I thought was a good way to put it. He goes on to say that a, quote, combination of civic gratitude, civic disputation, and lively respectful debate can avoid the twin extremes of indifference toward the public good and the frenzied activism that repudiates both gratitude and respect for the diversity of civic opinion. I would urge this board to consider how can you further incorporate civics education not just into a single course or grade or assessment, but rather as an integral part of the entire educational experience of our students. Let's make it a duty and a delight, not just for the school, but for our students. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Jane Kramer. Is she not here? Okay. Then Stephanie Regina.
First, Stephanie Regina, East Rock Hill. First, I'd like to commend the Community Committee on the development of a well-balanced mission statement that maintains focus on the role of DEI within our district. It's encouraging to see a diverse group from our community actually listening to each other, and I hope to see many good things come from the committee in the very near future. That said, I have deep concerns about Pennridge's academic direction, especially given that our national and state rankings have been in a free fall over the last few years. While the district has been placing intense focus on subjective issues that have been riling up the community, I would like to know how the board intends to address the district's deteriorating academic reputation. For example, it has come to my attention that because of supposed scheduling issues, there are plans to quietly and quickly phase out high school science lab periods. Let me repeat that. If approved, high school students will no longer have designated periods for science labs, leaving teachers to magically teach 100% of the content in as little as 75% of the hours. I have 3 children who will be in high school in just a few short years. They love science and look forward to more complex hands-on learning when they're older. For all I know, 1 or more of them will go on to study an area of science after high school. How is the district preparing them for their post-high school pursuits if they graduate not having experience conducting a proper, thorough science lab, or else having had corners cut in other aspects of their science courses in order to accommodate rushed, stressful course requirements? And from what I understand, there's currently no real formal gifted program at the high school. I have heard that perhaps this is because at that age, gifted students' needs are met through vigorous AP coursework. I don't know, maybe that would be fine if it meets students' GIEPs, but can they be met if the most challenging courses are being partially dismantled? Is that how the high school will be promoting student success? Then, of course, there are Pennridge's hardworking, exhausted teachers whose morale is already sinking like a battle-damaged ship with each passing month. What does it say about how the district treats its teachers if it starts asking the literal impossible of them? If a lab requires 90 minutes to set up and complete, our teachers, amazing as they are, cannot work magic. But they will try, and they will stress, and they will eventually break. Our teachers do not deserve this treatment, and Pennridge cannot afford to lose them if we don't want to see our rankings plummet even more. In short, the question is whether cutting lab periods will make our kids' educations better or administrators' work easier. While I realize that there are many other issues currently taking up the board's time, I hope it will turn its attention to this pressing matter and will work with teachers to find a solution that better supports them and their students. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Taliska.
Taliska, East Rockville Township. Want to talk about the Pledge of Allegiance. I think a lot of our students stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I know some do sit, but very few seem to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. And I wondered why that was, and I thought maybe the answer is the question itself. You know, why? I don't know if they're taught really. I don't know why we do these things. We do everything we do at the school, and all schools, we do for a reason. And I don't know if that's something that's really been maybe neglected, and we haven't given them a reason. So maybe I'd like to ask the board, or I would like to ask the board, to consider an appropriate action when maybe at the beginning of each week a public address is made to remind students why our schools, as a matter of formality, invite them, every student, to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in unison with their classmates and put their hand over their heart. And maybe we just need to provide this gentle reminder. And it wouldn't take long, something like, I pledge allegiance to, and this means a promise and a loyalty. The flag of the United States of America, our flag represents 50 states and the 13 original colonies. Together they symbolize the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, explain what a republic is. The power is with the people, and we elect our leaders. This is about a commitment to the idea of America. One nation under God, what a nation is, a bunch of people, geographical boundaries, common history, culture, language. And God here reflects a creator, an entity that is beyond us, above us, mortal human beings and outside of nature. And indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Indivisible means that not capable of being separated. And liberty is a special precondition where people can operate according to their own free will and notions of personal responsibility without external compulsion and coercion, and without hindering anybody else's liberty. And justice means fair and equal treatment. Something like that, but it wouldn't take that long. Appreciate the consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul Daniels?
I'll pass.
Okay. Ben Bridgewater?
Hello, Ben Bridgewater, Percy Borough. A few months ago, large amounts of Pennridge community members came out to the school board meetings to voice their concerns about pornographic material and inappropriate books in our school libraries. The school board was quick and efficient to respond to their constituents' concerns. However, it is truly tragic that many well-meaning members of the Pennridge community have fallen victim to misinformation from a small handful of dishonest, misinformed, and underinformed articles and reporters. These articles have given the false impression that the school board has banned LGBT books and that the board is homophobic. Both of these statements are false. The truth is that the books are reviewed, and if they are appropriate, then they are put back onto the shelves. For example, one such book that some members of the community were concerned about being banned was Heather Has Two Mommies. But I'm sure that those concerned community members would be pleased to know that this book has been returned to the shelves. It is a shame that this unmerited outrage was manufactured to sow division and tension in our community. No one wants pornography in our schools, so I thank the board for its swift response to the community's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Young?
Heather Young, Hilltown Borough. This evening's President's report spoke to the importance of communication with appropriate district contacts for clarity on concerns. Yet clarity is not something that was received following communication with district staff regarding the book review. Superintendent responses varied and differed from school employee responses, school employees who received the directive initially. In the face of Roberechek's directive, showing one target of gender identity books, the district catalog showing the titles that have been pulled for review align with Roberechek's directive. It is clear certain district responses have been intentionally misleading. I am in favor of parental choice. That is, parents making choices for their own children. Parents may contact their child's school to flag certain topics from being provided to their child. On the matter of what is developmentally appropriate, many in the transgender community report the average age of 7 years old as when they begin to speak out on their gender concerns. The book quoted at the start of the meeting was received by me as informative and simple. It shouldn't alarm anyone or upset anyone to hear that grown-ups can sometimes get things wrong. Children are fully aware of that fact. I ask that the board not support sweeping acts of control at the request of some, but rather direct those parents to their child's school for assistance with supporting their parental choice of their own children. Children who are seeking out these topics are doing so for a reason. A child who accidentally brings home an age-appropriate book on what transgender means is simply going to learn about a minority population, and this is not a concern. Certainly, if board members are addressing district matters on partisan radio talk shows before providing honest answers to district families, then district families are not to be discouraged from bringing their concerns to media, especially when in possession of the original directive that states gender identity books. It is inappropriate and un-American to attempt to limit local press on what they report on, or rally to have local journalists fired, as has recently played out in our community. Lastly, I applaud the community committee meeting for coming to grips with the definition of equity, and I look forward to seeing the committee follow through on its purpose of sharing concerns with the board. I hope to see a respect for public comment and input, as that is where your anecdotal data is collected, and in a community concern arena, anecdotal data is actually valid. Thank you.
All right. Ed Mackhouse? Ed Mackhouse?
So, my name is Ed Backhouse. I'm from Furlong, and actually in the Central Bucks School District. And I applaud what Pennridge has been doing. I've been coming and speaking to here for a number of years, and I appreciate how you're dealing with the issues. I especially appreciate the Unity Committee. I think the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory are very important issues, and cannot probably be handled at all the school board meetings. So I appreciate your having a special committee to look into these things. And from Central Bucks also deals with these issues. And in Central Bucks there was, it was brought out, there was accusations of anti-Semitism and anti-LGBTQ things, and a lot of students came out and reported that they had been bullied and stuff. And I think that racism and stuff, I think children naturally tend to tease each other and stuff, and I think it's an issue probably in every school district. And so Central Bucks, the students came out, I'm proud that they came out and talked about how they've been bullied. And I think the issue of peacemaking, half families are divorced. I think people always have a lot of conflicts. And I think making an issue of unity, like I remember at the Central Bucks we had the CP Cares. I think Pennridge also cares about people in the community. And I think we had, I remember one speaker spoke about coaching, like what everyone likes. What does everyone like? Everyone likes to get advice, but no one likes to receive advice. So I think listening is a very important development, and the importance they had for the sports. At one time they had a requirement that parents take a course in coaching, because no one likes to be criticized. Positive coaching and how interacting, and that coaching. My children, they don't like me to tell them anything. They like to be asked questions. So a good part of teaching is to listen to the students and find out what they think. And so I think it's important for teachers to keep their, be objective and to learn from the students, because we know more than the students because we're educated, but the students are just as intelligent as us, and they know more about what's going on in the community. And so I think, like a Jewish, the answer to anti-Semitism isn't to condemn anybody. If someone said something anti-Semitic, there must be some reason. I mean, we're not perfect. We should address that and listen to that person's, and not condemn everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all we have for public comment. As for announcements, an executive session was held on January 7th, 2022 to discuss a safety matter, and on January 10th, 2022 to discuss personnel matters. The next school board meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 28th.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
Please, Ms. Chenoweth, please make sure that the record reflects that there was an executive session at the beginning of this meeting for personnel matters, and I believe there will be an executive session after this meeting for personnel. No?
No, not today.
Not today?
Yep.
Cancel that last bit.
All right, and with that,